The silence in the hospital room hurt more than the labor ever had. My arms trembled as I cradled the tiny baby wrapped in a white blanket, searching my husband's face for the smile I had imagined through 9 long months. Instead, Jacob stood near the window with his hands buried deep in his pockets, staring outside as though the parking lot held more meaning than the little girl who had entered our world only 2 hours earlier. The nurse gently encouraged him to come closer, but he quietly shook his head and looked away. My heart cracked in a way no doctor could ever heal. If you found yourself in that room, watching the person you trusted most refuse to even touch your newborn child, would you fight for them, or would you begin protecting your heart before it broke any further? The pregnancy had not been easy. We lived in a quiet town in Ohio where every dollar mattered, and every unexpected expense felt like another stone added to our shoulders. Jacob worked long shifts repairing heating systems while I spent my days teaching at the local elementary school until my doctor ordered bed rest during the final weeks. We had painted the nursery ourselves, buying second-hand furniture and carefully folding tiny clothes donated by neighbors from church. Every evening Jacob would rest his hand on my growing belly and dream about teaching our child to ride a bicycle, fish by the lake, and laugh through life's storms. I believed I had married a man whose heart was too gentle to ever disappoint the people he loved. Then our daughter arrived after a difficult delivery that lasted nearly 18 exhausting hours. She was small but perfectly healthy, with dark curls already covering her tiny head and bright blue eyes that blinked curiously at the unfamiliar world. I expected tears of joy from Jacob, but instead I saw confusion, fear, and distance spreading across his face. He barely glanced toward the baby before stepping backward. The nurse assumed he simply felt overwhelmed, but as minutes became hours, the empty space between father and daughter seemed impossible to cross. Every time someone offered him the chance to hold her, he quietly refused. I smiled through tears so no one would see my panic, yet inside I wondered what invisible wall had suddenly appeared between the man I loved and the child we had both prayed for. That evening felt endless. Friends from church texted congratulations while relatives called to celebrate the newest member of our family. I answered with cheerful words that hid the ache growing inside me. Jacob remained polite to everyone but distant from me. He kissed my forehead before saying he needed fresh air, and I watched him disappear down the hallway. Alone in the dim hospital room, I rocked my daughter and whispered promises she could not yet understand. I promised she would always know she was wanted. I promised she would never carry the weight of someone else's silence. Most of all, I promised myself that whatever had frightened Jacob, I would not allow it to define our little girl's first memories of love. The hours crawled toward morning. Sleep refused to come as questions circled endlessly inside my mind. Had he changed his mind about becoming a father? Did he blame me for something beyond my understanding? Was our family already falling apart before it had truly begun? Every possibility felt more painful than the last. Just before sunrise, I noticed the empty chair beside my bed. Jacob had never returned during the night. My heart sank deeper than ever before. As the first morning light spread across the room, the hospital door slowly opened. Jacob stepped inside looking exhausted, his eyes swollen from crying. In his hands he carried an old wooden box I had never seen before. Without speaking, he sat beside me and carefully opened it. Inside rested a faded photograph of a smiling young woman holding a newborn baby. Beside it lay a tiny knitted blanket worn thin by time. His voice trembled as he finally shared a story he had buried since childhood. His mother had died less than a day after giving birth to his younger sister because of unexpected medical complications. He had been only 8 years old. The final image burned into his memory was watching nurses place his baby sister into his father's arms while everyone else cried. From that moment, newborn babies became connected to unbearable loss. Throughout my pregnancy he believed he had overcome those memories, but the instant he saw our daughter, every forgotten fear returned. He was terrified that loving her would somehow mean losing me too. The truth washed over the room like rain after months of drought. His refusal had never been rejection. It had been fear wearing the mask of distance. Tears streamed down both our faces as years of hidden pain finally found words. I reached for his hand, placing it gently on our daughter's tiny blanket. She instinctively wrapped her little fingers around one of his. The room fell completely still. Something inside Jacob seemed to break free. His shoulders shook as he carefully lifted her into his arms for the very first time. He stared at her as though seeing hope itself instead of the ghost of his past. She opened her sleepy eyes, and a tiny smile appeared across her face. In that ordinary, beautiful moment, decades of fear lost their power. Watching him hold our daughter transformed everything I thought I knew about strength. Real courage was not pretending painful memories never existed. Real courage was facing them, admitting them, and choosing love anyway. Over the following months Jacob became the father he had always dreamed of becoming. He mastered midnight feedings, learned how to braid tiny curls despite many hilarious mistakes, and filled our home with laughter that slowly replaced every painful memory. The shadows of his childhood never disappeared completely, but they no longer controlled his future. Our daughter grew up knowing only the warmth of her father's embrace, never realizing how close fear had come to stealing those precious moments forever. Years later, whenever someone admired the close bond between father and daughter, I would quietly remember that heartbreaking hospital room where hope seemed impossible. Life has a way of hiding incredible transformations behind its darkest nights. Sometimes the people who appear the coldest are carrying wounds no one else can see. A little patience, compassion, and understanding can open doors that anger never could. The morning after our daughter's birth did not erase the pain of the night before, but it proved that broken hearts can heal when truth finally replaces silence. Second chances often arrive quietly, asking only that we choose love over fear one more time. Before you leave, tell us in the comments, if you had been in my place, would you have walked away in heartbreak, or would you have waited one more day for the truth? If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of compassion, forgiveness, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can experience stories that inspire hope.